Hi, Catherine. How you doing? Okay, let's go ahead and get your work up here in the window. I'm going to take a look at the front, and then we'll go ahead and jump over to the back. And let me see. I was wondering. Okay. Yep. Let's just go ahead and jump right over to the work. Okay. So the front, I think, looks fantastic. We talked a lot about the front. There's a couple of things, though, I'm seeing here that I do want to recommend, or at least comment on. So right now, the V is it doesn't really seem to be in alignment. Now, I'm not real sure how your grid works. And if this does indeed fall into a grid line when you superimpose your grid. But my only recommendation here is to get this in alignment with something because right now it seems really super randomly placed. I think the obvious thing to do would be to pull it over and align it with the O. Now, I think we have room to do that because we've got a little bit of visual weight over here, so it's not going to be imbalanced. And also, we've got the weight of the sign. So I'm thinking that that's going to work. Now, if that doesn't work, think of another point of alignment. Like I said, I think that would be the obvious. You could even bring it over here and right align it and just see how it works. Just try to get that in alignment somewhere. The other thing I notice is there's a little bit of diminished contrast here in the sign. And I was looking at that before and I didn't comment on it because I couldn't quite put my finger on it. But now I can clearly see that the Route 66, you've got this kind of pink and blue hues, which is great. But the blue hue is identical to the background hue. So I think that we can increase the contrast therein by changing that more to like an interstate blue, or maybe even do some research to see what that Route 66 sign actually looked like in terms of color. I don't recall off the top of my head what that sign looks like, but go ahead and just consider changing the background color for the sign, the blue for the sign, so that we can get some increased contrast when we compare that to the background blue of the sky that it sits on. Okay, other than that, as I said, I'm a big fan of the background. I love it. I love the way that the word kind of expresses the vastness of rural America. I like the relationship, the color relationship between kind of dirt road and sky, and a lot of rural America consisted of dirt roads at that time. So I just think it's really cool. Good job. A lot of great consideration here. I'm looking at the sign and I noticed before that something is a little bit funny there, and I thought there was a double stroke on that. So I zoomed in, and this is what I found when I zoomed in. You've got a little bit of dimension depicted in the Route 66 sign, as we can see here, right here by this kind of dimension. Now, this is indicating something, or this dimension here is kind of, it's indicating that there's depth in that sign, and or it's indicating a light source. If it is a light source, the light source, as we can see by that kind of dimension area, would be down here. But that doesn't make any sense, right? Because this light source would not fall down there. The light source would fall from the sky somewhere. The other thing is that if this is just to depict depth, those highway signs weren't thick. I mean, as you know, highway signs they're steel, but they're really super thin. And that, in conjunction with the fact of zooming out here, it's starting to look like a double stroke there, so it almost looks like a mistake. You can see that there. So I would say I would reconsider that treatment right there. So think about that. Okay, let's jump to the back. I think the back is it really is very welcoming. I think it's laid out beautifully. I love the timeline. I like a lot of things about the back of the poster. I really do. I think the back of the poster is really, really done well. I do, of course, however, have a few recommendations. So the voice of rural America, and you've included that in on the front and in the back, and that's okay. There's no issues there at all. But voice of rural America, that's actually a nice little typographic composition right there. A really good spacing, done very well. But if we zoom in here, what do we see? We've broken a big golden rule in typography by placing a stroke on the typeface, and we don't do that. If you remember, the reason we don't do that, and this was covered in some of our lectures and discussion boards, the reason we don't stroke typefaces is because it actually changes the shapes of the letters, whether the stroke be on the inside of the hard lines, or whether it fall on the middle of the contour lines, the inside of the contour lines, or the outside of the contour lines, which we have ability to control while applying stroke to letter forms. It doesn't matter where you place it, it's going to affect either the shape of the letters themselves individually or the relationship of the negative space with the neighboring letters. And for that reason, most professional designers, including myself, highly recommend that you don't stroke type. And I certainly do. I recommend that. Okay. Typeset looks fantastic. This is, it's done very, very well. I would go through your rags. You've got a couple of really drastic angles here. That's crazy right there. That's got to get adjusted. A couple of other areas. For the most part, your rags are looking pretty good. That can drop to the next line, that word in. There's a few areas that are problematic. New York technically is a widow. And I'll talk about that. Right, I'll go through some other things, but right now I just want to take a look at these rags. So you want to adjust those rags, and you know what? I made a video and I placed it in the announcements area, and it's how to adjust your rags. So take a look at that. There's actually a video tutorial in there in InDesign. So I give you a whole bunch of techniques to adjust your rags. So take a look at that. Okay, typeset looks great. Nice job. Old style numerals, fantastic, looking great. I did find one area though. I went through this and I didn't see a whole lot of area where it would be applicable to apply small caps. I did find one though, and it's right here. Gustav, is that 11th or the 6th? What is that? That was the 6th. So that would be small caps. Okay, I didn't see any other areas. So if there are any other areas applicable to apply small caps, please do so. This is really interesting. I think the typography is showing proficiency, definitely. You've elected to indent, however, your indents are inconsistent. Let me show you what I mean. This indent right here is several characters deep. I mean, you're probably 8 characters deep, but this one over here is only 3 characters deep. And so set your indents on your paragraph styles and make sure that they're consistent. Okay, now listen, I'm probably going to randomly ask several students to let me see their InDesign files during week 8, where I will be checking for paragraph and character styles. So just keep that in mind, okay? Really good research here in presenting the titles of these books in italics. That's fantastic. One thing I noticed though is that we can go ahead, you can present the year in italic as well. That's up to you, that's optional. I think it might flow through the paragraph a little bit more consistently, specifically since you have several titles in a row and then the year is presented in standard Roman set, while the title itself is set in an oblique or a italic set. Think about that, italicizing the years associated with that. And we see that here too. That's optional. I mean, that's really up to you. It really depends on how you think it looks. You've got paragraphs depicted by an indent as opposed to a space between. I would recommend making yourself familiar on how to delineate paragraphs with a space between. And again, that can be done via paragraph styles. And the advantage there is that to really preserve the gorgeous left margins without interrupting. I prefer a space between, but this isn't about what I prefer. This is about good typesetting. So whatever you think it works. My point is merely that it's a really great idea to become proficient at both and set both up in your paragraph and or character styles. One thing I noticed is, we talked about that orphan right there. I think your typeset is done very well. Now, one thing I would recommend is this is a special situation. It's not reverse type because you still have dark type on a lighter color background. So it's not technically reverse. However, we do have a little bit of kind of contrast things to consider. Seeing that it's not your basic standard black or dark type on a white background. The addition of color adds a little bit of additional consideration, and my recommendation, specifically since you're using a serif typeface, is to open up the tracking pretty much on the entire, not much, just open up the tracking just a little bit. I think that will serve more expeditious readability and legibility. So try that. We've got this beautiful word wrap right here. That's a cool job. Good job there. But the last line, we lost the last line, so our baseline is no longer in alignment. So think about adjusting that. Okay, so that's typography. These titles in the timeline, I think they're a little too bold and a little too dominant. I would reduce those a little bit. And as a matter of fact, let's go ahead and take a look at the timeline itself. I think the timeline is really super interesting. Very clever. Nice job there. But as far as the layout goes, I would pull this over and start the timeline here. The timeline can really be considered a separate composition, and we can get this way over here. I'm not real sure about the term milestones. I don't even think we need that. I think it's pretty obvious that this is a timeline, so I don't even think we need that. So that's up to you, but I just don't think it's needed. I think that if we stretch this out a little bit, start here and end here, I think we're good. Consider a sans serif on your timeline just to get some typographic variety going on in here. And then too prominent on your dates, your years. I'm sorry, the numbers. And you don't have to present those. I mean, you've been paying attention, obviously. You don't have to present your years in old style numerals or old style figures because they don't fall in line with body copy. So we don't have to try to adjust them to be a little bit more compatible with the X height. Since these sit on their own, you're fine. It's a matter of personal preference. You certainly can set those to old style figures if you want to. Take a look at, see how it works, and adjust from there. My final recommendation is basically the placement of the image and this shape in the background. I don't see the significance of this shape, and I've been trying to find what that significance could possibly be. The only thing I could come up with was this angle and the sign, but it doesn't. If this were a depiction of the sign, it would come across like that. But I don't think we need it. I really don't think we need that added color there. I just don't think it has any benefit. This whole configuration right here, it's just, to me, it's creating kind of unusual shapes. So my recommendation here is just to present that in the regular color background and just bring this image up. Don't bleed the image and just present the image as such. I did recommend this to a couple of other students. So this little line, this horizontal rule under the image, I mean, it looks like you're trying to add something to the image. Try this. This image is sitting here with just a regular blue background. What you do is you just take a square the same size, exact same size of the image, color it this color purple. I'm sorry, this pinkish color from the sign, and then offset it. Meaning that what you do is, just for example, so you wouldn't see it because it's the exact same size back there, but what you would do is nudge it down and to the right a little bit, creating some dimension and also some continuation with the colors in the timeline and the Route 66 sign. Try it. I think it's a great technique. Great technique. Now, of course, that's going to entail dropping the word wrap based on this angle right here. But again, I just think this shape right here is really precarious. I think these shapes and just this whole general configuration over here is a little bit visually tense and not in a good way. A little cluttered, a little bit random, as it were. So think about that. Okay, so other than that, really fantastic, really good work. I'm loving it so far. So if you have any questions at all, please let me know. Thank you.